In today's video, we're going to look at another type of iteration, known as condition-controlled iteration. To help with this tutorial, you should be familiar with counter-controlled iteration and should have access to an IDE that uses Python. Condition-controlled iteration is also known as indefinite iteration, or while loops. They're called indefinite because we don't know exactly when they will end, as they are based on a condition being met or not met. As an example, imagine being told in a PE lesson to run until your teacher said stop. You don't know how many laps you will do, as no number has been specified. Here, the condition is while the teacher has not said stop, and the instruction to be repeated is running. Here's an example of a while loop in Python. Try out the following code, run it and see what happens. Try to work out how this code works. Pause the video here to let you do this. So, here's a breakdown of how this code works. This program is supposed to record the number of laps someone has completed, and will keep going until they do not complete a lap. The first line contains a variable called number of laps. We set this to 0 so that we can add to it later in our program. Every time you want to use a variable to count something, you should declare it at the start of the program by assigning it to a value of 0. The second line is another variable, but this one has yes assigned to it. This is vital for us to start our while loop. I'll explain that in a moment. In our third line is the start of our while loop. This is where we set the condition. As long as the condition on this line is true, the instructions that are indented below it will be carried out. In here, the condition is that the lap variable needs to be equal to yes, and that's why we assigned yes to the lap variable in line 2. The next line has been indented, which means it belongs to the while loop and will be carried out as long as the condition is true. This line outputs an instruction to the user. You would already be familiar with line 5 as well. It simply lets the user enter a response to the instruction they were given. This input will change the value of our lap value, therefore determine whether or not the condition has still been met. If we don't have this line, the loop will never end. The final line of our loop adds 1 to the number of laps variable. This is so that we can keep account of how many laps the user has completed. Then in our very last line of the code, it will output the total number of laps completed. Notice that it has not been indented. This is because we don't want to repeat this instruction. We only want it to happen one time, and that's once the user has stopped running. Feel free to test the code out for yourself and check what happens if you indent that line. Alright, that's everything you need to know about iteration.